My name is Eugene.
Looking at times I've messed up, there are many things I could definitely point to. There's times when I misjudge people. There's times where I assume something to be 100% true, such as, did you know bears don't sleep for all of winter? Or that the mitochondria isn't actually the powerhouse of the cell. Dr. Hernandez once said, there is no such thing as common sense. Yet I believed this was common sense, and yet it couldn't be further from the truth. These ideas that we build stories on, ideas that we make jokes about, turn out to not be true at the end of the day. The mitochondria isn't the powerhouse of the cell, because not all cells have mitochondria, and bears don't sleep all winter whilst hibernating. In lecture, Dr. Hernandez mentioned, science isn't what you believe, but what can be proven true. In this case, science in my mind was what made the most sense. An idea that was pushed. In my mind, I thought, of course, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, because that made the most sense. This was a severe oversimplification that affected the other thoughts I had. The simplest things were what we believed. In Believe by the Oatmeal, it talks about how people believe certain things that can trigger a visceral reaction upon finding out that it's not true. The prior ideas that were hammered deep into my brain during childhood, which is backed up by the same oversimplified childhood science, couldn't take finding out that it was not true. Upon the discovery of that through a YouTube video, no less, it was only natural to look for something that backed up my point. Anything that could support the ideas I was already exhibiting. This is something that Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie mentioned, which is the danger of a single story. A single story that matches your point. Such an idea led to my continued belief in the myth until later down the line. This falls into the idea of confirmation bias, mentioned by Dr. Hernandez. Anything which supports our idea of truth gets put in the forefront, leaving out the other things. We see this in our society as well. People are so hell-bent on one idea that it won't make sense if we talked about it otherwise. One such thing could be seen in the conflict between Israel and Palestine. There are clear wrongdoings on both sides, yet in some ways both sides can't see the faults that are there. I too fall victim to this. As a young Asian male who was originally from a blue state, I believe one side while sometimes failing to see the other. The idea that the atrocities are occurring from both sides isn't something people think about when demonizing one of the sides and painting a story that isn't truly fleshed out. It's hard to educate people and make them understand both sides of a story when the ideas and the opinions are so strong. Yet, it is also possible. People's minds are shaped by the people around them. By exhibiting unbiased and open thinking around everyone, they too will open up their minds and see things for more that fits than what fits just their beliefs. When asking my peers, they say something different. My peers talked about how different topics relate to them more. One of them aimed to learn through experiences, holding off judgment and thought until after experiencing something for the first time, demonstrated in his old misconception of Asians being bad drivers. The same friend also felt that racial prejudice and assumptions were some of the hardest things to change people's minds about, namely the root cause of COVID-19 not being the Chinese. My other interviewee mentioned he would aim to resolve and reconcile with the party he wronged or is wrong about, only knowing that he was wrong by seeing the issue and mistake in person. I was saying the general public was hard to convince, but even his peers were hard to convince in topics such as climate change and the value of resources such as water. In all cases, when comparing myself and my peers, despite all being Asian American men, we all hold different viewpoints and methods of finding ourselves to be wrong. I focus on facts, while my peers focus on experiences. Yet we all find ourselves in a middle ground. Julia Galef talks about the two mindsets one could have, the scout and the soldier. And we find ourselves constantly in the middle ground, too stubborn to accept that we were wrong beforehand, but self-aware enough to admit fault.